there is unemployment. There is unemployment, and we are in a recession. We are not using resources to their best use, basically, in this case. So move towards full employment yields a greater output. So in that case, if we are moving towards full employment, we are getting closer to the line where efficiency is. Closer to MB equals MC, marginal benefit equals marginal cost. Yeah. So yeah, so those arrows, as we're going to full employment, those arrows are moving basically. So yeah, as Justin said, increases in factor supplies would cause economic growth, shift out of the PPC. And then improved factor quality would also do that too. So quality of resources would do that. And then technological advances as well. So all three. So increases in factor supplies, increased factor quality, and technological advances. So yeah, this is what happens if technology gets better, if resources get better in quality, if resources get better in quality. So with trade, it's important so trade works best when one country produces something with their lowest opportunity cost, another country produces something that has their lowest opportunity cost as well. So, like, for example, like the US produces high-tech machinery because the opportunity cost of this is low for the US. While, let's say, nations in Asia produce textiles because the opportunity cost is low for nations in Asia. And the US sells high-tech machinery to countries in Asia, while countries in Asia sell textiles to the US. This is more efficient because the opportunity cost of producing textiles in the US is very high, and the opportunity costs of producing high-tech machinery in certain countries in Asia is high. So then they trade because this is most efficient. Specialization in trade is most efficient. So specializing in the products in producing, specializing in producing a product with the lowest opportunity cost and trading is the most efficient outcome with trade. But however, there's a lot of issues with this is true, but what are the issues with production across the world? Like can you think of any issues that happen that you've heard of that happen with manufacturing in countries across the world? Yeah, dumping is, yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah, dumping is when you sell a product for way less than the competitor and drive them out of business. It is illegal based on the World Trade Organization, but companies still do it. So that's a good answer. But the so what happens is there's a lot of in like India, China, and other countries, there's a lot of like forced labor that happens. There's child labor, unsafe working conditions. That does happen. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, working conditions for employees are bad. Yeah, exactly. So Foxconn produces Apple iPhones, and the working conditions are very bad. Uh, and they had to install nets at the facilities, like to so they had to install nets at the facilities on so the staircases go up like this, and then they had to install nets on the parts of the staircase um that were open, so people don't jump. Like they were caught by the nets, and that's how bad it is in terms of working conditions in those factories. And I know there's a lot of child labor, there's a lot of unsafe working conditions, forced labor, very bad pay, very low pay. So this is like, in theory, specialization in trade is a good thing, but the problem is there's a lot of issues that happen with the working conditions in these countries that produce like textiles and a lot of the products that the U.S. Trades for. So those are issues that are not looked at enough, and and yeah, it's there's so many issues with it, and they're not looked at enough. So lowest opportunity cost trade is great in theory, but it's a lot more complicated because the working conditions are just so bad over in like other countries. So there's a lot of issues with economic reasoning, including biases. So a lot of people make up their opinion before they see the data. That's a big problem. You gotta evaluate the data and then make a conclusion and not come in with your conclusion already made. So that's a big problem because a lot of people they already have a conclusion before they see the data. And that's a big problem. Also, correlation and causation. Like they're not the same thing. So like if one thing goes up and another thing goes up, they do not necessarily cause each other. To find causation, you have to do a lot of work. So you got to do a lot of work and figure out what makes sense. Like what makes sense. Like the so so like let's say the the temperature goes up by 40 degrees Celsius and tuition goes up by $2,000. They are correlated, but we don't know if it is causation. We need to do a lot of research and work to figure out if they are causal. So that's an important distinction. So